I'm not going to change. I got some bad habits. I'm not perfect, and there's a couple. I like to drink a beer now and then. Not going to change that. But at the same time, all things in moderation. And when I take inventory, that was one thing that needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous. Well, I could have held on to that habit for a very long time and see if it affected me or didn't affect me. And maybe I was going to be one of the lucky ones to make it to age 80 without some sort of major illness. Or I can say, what the heck am I doing? Why?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Progressive Resistance Podcast. I am, of course, your host. Have a great guest. We're going to get into some good topics and excited to share this conversation. Well, it's live right now, but with you guys, my listeners, my subscribers, my watchers, all the things. And I want to start by acknowledging you guys and give my appreciation. I can do this, but it goes nowhere without you guys. So I appreciate you being here. If you're new here, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share so that we can continue to spread my general message of build the better you and keep getting good conversations and good information out there that can be found and maybe help people take an audit and an inventory on their life and get things pointed maybe in a direction that it hasn't been. So appreciation for you guys. So again, like, subscribe, share, and make sure you're spreading the word to the people that you know and love as well. So appreciate you guys. And then with that being said, I also want to tailor this to you guys as much as I can. So what I'd like for you guys to do is I want to hear from you of what are some topics that you'd like to hear more about, or what are some topics that maybe we've not touched on that you'd love for me to dive into with my guests on these episodes. So if you have something that's on your radar, on this video, make a comment on the YouTube video. Or the other option is throw me a DM on the social medias. So handles for people that are listening to this. My personal social is L Krubeck 22. That's Krubeck. And then we've got the gym as well. So the barbell club is the.barbellclub. No, excuse me, that's the website. It's at the.barbellclub. So throw me a DM and let me know some ideas that you have. If there's topics that you want me to talk about and get into here, I would love to do that and maybe even personalize this a bit more for you. So other things on housekeeping, just a reminder where these can be found. They can be found on the Luke Krubeck YouTube channel if you want to watch them. And then they can also be listened to on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. So you can check them out there. And then last shameless plug, my album's out. Most of you that follow me know that I'm a musician, and that album is called Ground and Center, and that can be found on all the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, all of it. So check that out. It's under Luke Krubeck, Ground and Center. Sir Lance Bauer, welcome to the Progressive Resistance Podcast.
Good morning, Lucas. How are you doing?
I'm well, man. I appreciate you being here, taking this opportunity, which was a last-minute invite. I kind of do that a lot to my guests, I'm not going to lie, because if I call you a month ahead of time, there's lots of times to think about reasons why you shouldn't do it. And I think, and I'm not speaking for you, but some people have a little bit of reservation if they've never done this. The idea of sitting in front of camera and a microphone and getting maybe a certain degree of vulnerability happening. So a lot of times I'll throw it a little late in there and see if I can catch people, because I think it helps remove the resistance. And I also think it helps the conversations be a little bit real and not as scripted, which is perfect. So again, thank you for taking up this offer. Just for our listeners, how I know Lance is through the Barbell Club. Lance, how long have I been training you now?
A little over 2 years.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So Lance came in with some strong encouragement from his better half, and
say the least.
He may have had some uncertainty coming in and what that might be like, but I think we've made him a believer in the value and the power of strength training. But he and I, not only did we get to train Lance and train his body, but we always train our minds a little bit, because we get into some good discussions in that hour that we have each Thursday morning. And I thought, some of these conversations need to be heard. Some of these topics need to be heard by others, I think. We've unpacked some cool stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to call Lance and see if he wants to sit down and, chew the fat with me, as they say, for a little bit this morning. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Lance, just give the listeners a little bit of background on you, so they know kind of who they're listening to. Let's just start with, man, where are you from?
Worland, Wyoming, farm and ranch kid. Spent most of my life on a farm and ranch, and then moved away, went to college, University of Wyoming, and Lisa and I, she's from Basin, so her and I have been together a very, very long time. She raised me first, I always say. And then after college, we moved away for a few years, Boise, Idaho, then came back and raised 3 kids in Cody. So I was a banker in Cody for about 17 years and transitioned over to my own business. I'm with Canyon Real Estate. I'm a real estate agent at this time. So that's kind of been my journey, kind of quick summary of what it looked like.
That's perfect. So how old were you when you and your wife met?
Oh boy. Uh-oh, hopefully she's not listening.
She will, trust me.
Yeah. So I'm thinking we were about sophomores in high school, so that'd put us probably right in that age 15-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
Awesome. What was your childhood? What was youth like for you growing up in Worland? Can you give me a little synopsis of what life was like for Lance growing up?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've got an older sister, 2 younger brothers. You know, we lived in town. We participated in all sports. Folks had a lot of work ethic, my father, with the farm and ranch thing. So we never had much idle time. He didn't believe in allowing us to have much idle time. So our weekends, we were farming. It was heavy equipment, irrigating, livestock, all those things. And looking back on it, it was a wonderful way to grow up, and we were busy. So, not a lot of extra time to get in trouble.
There's a saying, I'm going to butcher it, but isn't there something that says like idle hands are the devil's workshop or something like that?
Absolutely.
Probably something to that.
Mm-hmm.
So was that your family's form of income then? Was the farming and ranching?
Solely, yes.
And was it like, what are we talking on the agriculture side? Was it, were there crops? Was it just livestock?
Yeah.
What were we?
Combination.
Okay.
So most of it was crops. So there's sugar beets and barley and beans and all the things that are grown in the valley, and some corn and so forth. I can't remember the exact acreage that we farmed, but it was probably 500 to 800 acres of irrigated ground. So I grew up irrigating and so forth. And then we had about 150 head of cattle when I was younger. So horses and cattle were kind of a part of our daily routine too. So that was a little side income.
Now, was that operation completely ran by you guys as a family, or was there other employees that were?
There were other employees. Yeah, we had a couple of other employees. Most of it was family participation, I would say.
Okay.
As I was kind of the number 2 child in 4, so, I guess that my 2 younger brothers might be slightly younger than me. So when I went through, I irrigated and did all the daily chores on the farm. And then my brothers, I aged out, went on to college, and then they stepped in and sort of transitioned through. So, yeah, to answer your question, a lot of family participation. And
so, I mean, a lot of that probably initially just felt like, well, these are the things that I have to do. These are my chores, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But it's connected to the business. Did you ever get insight into the business side of it? Or did it always just kind of feel like the thing that you had to do?
Yeah, I guess probably the thing you had to do. A lot of work ethic. So my father, it didn't matter how late you were out at night and what you were up to, but you had to get up at 5 a.m. and get your chores done and get the animals fed and get through your daily activity, irregardless of what else you might have going. So I didn't really get a chance to peek into maybe the business side, if that's where you're going, but it really kind of sort of established the work ethic that I continue to use or think about in most of my life today.
Yeah.
So it impacted me substantially in that regard. If that answers your question.
You found some value in it there.
Yeah.
With I find that being part of that stuff in your youth does one of 2 things. It either draws you towards it or pushes you away from it. Did you ever think about a career path that was similar to that? Or you're like, nah, I'm all set?
Actually very much did.
Okay.
So most of high school and maybe even early college, I intended to maybe go back to the farm. because that was the life I knew and enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mother, who's a very strong personality, a lot of fun, and she said to me, she said, I want you to go away and learn something, come back when you're a little bit older and smarter, and we'll have a conversation whether you add value to the place or not.
Cool.
Well, I never did go back and have the conversation once I learned a few other things.
I have a feeling she may have knew that maybe it was going to be the path.
Yeah.
That's cool. So as I do with all the guests, Lance, I had you send me over some thoughts that you had rolling around the brain of yours. And I love doing that because it keeps the conversations connected to what you're rummaging through at the time. As I shared with you before we started rolling on the cameras here, is that every time someone sends me over their list, there's one or two that are very front of the mind awareness for me, or something connected to that. So we're going to kind of whittle through the things that you sent over to me today and have some discussions through them. So the one that I'd like to start with is something I've talked about a lot on this podcast. And in fact, with Phil, the man behind the camera here, he and I, he's been a guest twice now, which our next episodes, we're just getting ready to launch. But he and I talk about work-life balance a lot, as we're both entrepreneurs and looking at what does work-life balance mean? What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to achieve that? So I'll just set the stage with that work-life balance. That was one of the things you'd sent over. What do you think about when you think about work-life balance? What does it mean to you?
That's a great question, and you and I have had some great conversations, and I don't know if I have an answer that just nails maybe what your thought is, but our conversations have gone maybe a little bit like this. When you're younger, maybe you're focused on working and income and progressing through business opportunities, things of that nature, and maybe as you age, your work-life balance changes. Your kids grow up; they may now left potentially, maybe financially, you are achieving many of the goals that you hoped that you would have at that particular stage, and so you sort of have to balance it with your personal life and your work life, and that balance, that mix, you're constantly thinking about. You've been instrumental in my life, just in the hour or so that we've spent together the last couple of years. You've challenged me, asked me questions in reverse, and kind of got me thinking about that work-life balance even more than I've thought I was thinking about it prior to that. So it's definitely something that's in the front of my thought process on a daily basis, that I want to try and get that mix right, because you only got one shot at getting it right.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, I think it's a moving target.
Absolutely.
And Phil and I have talked about that a little bit too, where there's seasons through it all. And so because it's a moving target, and again, I don't know that I have the answers either, but I think about it enough to at least have enough of a grasp on it that hopefully it's not slipping away from me.
Yeah.
And I guess within those seasons, the things that I've realized is, okay, through the seasons, and seasons, being a metaphor for like weathering the storms that life gives us, what keeps me anchored? And that's this list behind me on this banner, right? And it hangs in the gym too, that God, family, freedom waits. So those are the basic 4 non-negotiable, I guess, categories maybe of the things that I will never let go of during those seasons of business, that maybe I've got to be working longer hours or doing these things. I still need to have those established. Maybe it won't look exactly like it does in a slower season, but they're still there. And those are still boxes that are regularly and intentionally being checked.
Yeah.
Instead of going, well, I'm going to put those on the shelf for a minute because of this season that I'm in right now. That's where I think it becomes problematic. And so I don't know if there's like an answer for, hey, here's what work-life balance needs to look like for you and everybody else. Because it's going to kind of boil down to what's important to you and what really matters. Work-life balance mean that, like, what do you mean work life? My work is my life, and that is for a lot of people. And if that's what they choose, then more power to them. But for me, it's bigger than that. the list behind me is partially my big part of my why, of why I'm doing the business, why I'm doing the things. And so I guess, and Phil and I have talked about this, is like, well, do you slow your progress down in business if you make sure that you're prioritizing these other things? And the answer might be yes, but I think you go farther. So do you go quicker without them? Maybe. But do you go as far? And then when you do get there, whatever that is, when you do reach those goals, are you alone? Like, you got there, you're at the top of the mountain, but then you look around and you're alone, and you look behind you and there's this wake of destruction and failed relationships, maybe a failed marriage, kids that you haven't spoken to in years, or all of these things, you missed.
Well, if you're not careful, those are all pitfalls. That are out there,
and I guess,
and available.
Sure, and for me, I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I refuse to use my family or anything on this list behind me as an excuse to not do what needs to be done. But those are the things that I need with me, right? And so I'm like, if and when I reach those goals, those are the things that I want right by my side: my relationship with my Creator, my family, my freedom, which means a lot of things, but that general like freedom compass, and then my weights, my fitness, my health. Instead of putting those things in the back burner, I'm like, well, I'm going to really grind really hard, and then I'll work on those things, because the danger there is that's a slippery slope, is nothing's promised.
Absolutely.
And so what if you checked out 10 years earlier than you thought you were, and then you didn't get the chance to work on that stuff? So I'm an advocate for, I think they need to grow together. And I think it's a moving target, I guess, is kind of what I've established and come down to.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I consciously thought this way a few years ago. I'm going to give a shout out to my wife, and actually my two daughters that forced me to get involved with some sort of weightlifting activity and they chose you, and I'm happy, and that you and I've got a great relationship, had a lot of great conversations. But my initial reaction to this is what are you doing? You're taking time away from my ability to maybe earn more income and produce, and that's my role, and that's what I need to be thinking about at this moment. And so, but I gave in. They set me up with you a couple years ago, and it's really, to your credit, it's brought a lot of meaning and balance back into my life, because I had no idea that my body was changing in a way that maybe was pulling me away from my goals. And then certainly, by investing back into my body, it's made all these other pieces easier to think about, easier to achieve, made them more obvious. That's what I needed to be spending time with. So if you feel a little better, irregardless, and maybe look a little better, but more importantly, feel a little better, you're going to be a little better in every category. And so I'm not sure it takes away from anything. I would highly recommend that, those that don't choose to maybe exercise on a regular basis or have that in their life, I would highly recommend it. And you've always challenged me, why not? Why aren't you putting your body first? Why aren't you putting the time first? And at first I thought, well, it's because I don't have time. I'm busy. I'm a busy guy, or I think I'm busy. And you sort of pushed back and said, well, you're not that busy, and think of what you could accomplish if you did this and then went on and did that. And then your relationships and your faith and your family and, the freedom and friends and all those pieces will enjoy you more. You're going to put more value into all those categories. So you made me recognize something I've always thought I knew, but I forgot, because I stopped investing in myself. I'm 54. In my 20s, I invested in my health a lot more. Even in my early 30s, I invested in my health. And then there was a 15-year period, maybe slightly more, where I really wasn't paying attention to it. It wasn't falling apart. Nothing hurt on a daily basis, so I just kind of kept doing my thing. And then all of a sudden, I noticed that I wasn't maybe keeping up in the same way that I'd always kept up, whether it be hiking in the mountains or just other kinds of activities. I wasn't as interested until I came to you, and you kind of shown us a physical. you've made me believe that I can have my 30-year-old body back. Maybe it's a 40-year-old body, but it's better.
Yeah.
And I can go and keep up and do all the things I want to do for a very long time. So kudos to you and Lisa, my wife and daughters, for kind of arranging this in an odd way. And
yeah. Well, the pleasure's been mine. And, have you established how many tens of thousands of dollars you've lost since you've been working out?
Right.
In fact, if you actually probably sat down and penciled the numbers, you're probably the same or more.
Absolutely.
And it's such an interesting thing to view when you're not in it. And you're like, well, I'm taking time from this craft. How is that going to make me more money? And I think what it comes down to is because you're showing the discipline that's required to do those things. And there's something just in the nature of doing hard shit. And when you don't maybe necessarily want to.
Absolutely. Or manage the stress.
Right. Yeah. And so the argument that I always give people, and one of the things on the general message of this podcast and my brand of Build the Better You, is how are you going to be the best anything if you're not investing in the things that help you be the best you?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're doing with this fitness. And everyone's like, well, I'm busy. I'm just so busy. And I'm like, well, I think we mistake busy for progress. And so it gives us an opportunity when we pull that, okay, so whatever, you've committed to 3 to 4 workouts a week, right? Okay, so we're talking 4 hours a week. Like, I'm no math major, but there's a lot of hours in the day. And on average, if you're sleeping 6, or let's say you're at the top end of 8, like, there's a lot of time left in the day. And you're going to tell me that in that week, you don't have 4 hours that you can dedicate to yourself and your health and just feeling better. And I just think you're going to have an easier time showing up. It's going to, like, to your point, it's going to help you with stress management. I think it sharpens your mind, because the mind and body are so incredibly connected. And the way that I try to lead people into training is doing so with great intention,
mm-hmm.
right? We spend a lot of time
mm-hmm.
talking about where we're trying to feel this exercise and why.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an engagement of the mind that's not otherwise there if we're just going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, all right, well, do your 10 squats. Okay, I got my 10 done, thank God. No, do your 10 squats, but where are we feeling it, right? Moving slow. And that's what helps it sharpen the mind too.
Mm-hmm.
That's what helps it be therapeutic. It's what helps it, I would say jokingly, half joking, that the gym is what helps me to not kill people. But it sharpens my mind because of that. And so when we move with intention, it allows us to check in on ourselves for 1 hour.
Right.
And the hope, when I built the Barbell Club, is that when you walk in that door to check in on you, you can check out of the world. And I think we need that break, and it gives us fresh eyes when we roll back. I use the analogy of like working on a puzzle. If you've ever worked on a puzzle and you're like, you just get lost in it because you're just too on top of it. And you step away to go get a drink of water, and then you're walking by the puzzle table and you're like, oh, there it is. And then you plug that piece in. And I think sometimes we need to remove ourselves to change the vantage point and the view. And I think fitness and investment in the self has a way to do that. So you had mentioned earlier in your little intro of kind of where you grew up and how you got to where you're at now. You talked about a career shift from banking into real estate, and I want to touch on that under this umbrella of work-life balance. So let's talk about that major career shift you had from banking to real estate, because you've shared it with me a little bit, and I think there's value in that story to other people that may be on the precipice of a similar ridge, where they're like, man, there's a shift coming and I don't exactly know what this looks like. It feels scary. There's a lot of unknowns. Mm-hmm. So would you be open to talking about that and kind of sharing some insights about that?
Yeah. I worked in a bank for 17 years. It was a wonderful experience, met a lot of people, learned a lot of different things. And deep down, I'd always kind of wanted to own my own business at some point. My father had owned his whole life, and so I was kind of surrounded by that. And I often thought, what could it be, that I could own and would enjoy, and so forth. And so, there was a moment in time where I shifted from the banking side and went over to the real estate side. And there was a couple of different occupations that I thought might be interesting, own my own business. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go into real estate, wear blue jeans, go out, look at ground, farm and ranch background. I thought that'd be perfect for me.
Now, was your exit Was it your decision?
It was kind of a collective decision that to kind of change paths.
Okay.
So at the very end of it, so
like they were going in a direction that you didn't want to go.
Yeah, kind of. It was. We had a meeting at the end, and we just chose to separate. And,
it was an amicable. Hey, we're not really seeing eye to eye
yeah.
on everything, so let's just go our separate ways.
Let's just transition. And so, at that point, you got to reinvent yourself, and you have to start making some hard decisions on what you want it to look like. And at the time, my family, I was the breadwinner. Lisa always has stayed home, kind of worked hard on the kids, and so I had to make something happen pretty quick.
That's harder than any job you've had, right?
Yeah. And so anyway, kind of jumped into this thing and kind of went at it full bore, and turned out, the amount of energy and the amount of effort I put into it, I was able to achieve quite a bit in that first year and in the last 10 years. So it was a good transition for me. It taught me a lot about myself and what the work ethic and the people I knew through the bank and so forth. And you kind of coupled those two environments, and gosh, it's been very good for me and my family. It's been a good transition.
One of the things I've talked about on this podcast, Lance, quite a bit is the resistance that we face and the resistance that we feel when we're making a change.
Mm-hmm.
We're making a move towards something that's going to challenge us,
Mm-hmm.
or we're making a move towards something. I think the resistance shows up especially when we're transitioning towards something that's really going to be good for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes from the constant battle for the human soul, because it's worth so much, the battle between good and evil. And the adversary is very good at giving us those intrusive thoughts of you shouldn't do that, and you're nobody, and who do you think you are? Oh, you're the expert, all those thoughts. So was it an easy transition, or can you speak to that? Did you have some of that? Did you face some resistance? Did you face some doubt? Did you face?
Oh, absolutely. All the above. I'm kind of a creature of habit, as are many. I like to do the same things. I'm very comfortable with routine. I want my little pattern, and this completely changed all that. You got to go and get licensed. There's a licensing process and a beginning process, and certainly you have to get out there and shake some hands and say hello to generate activity in order to make any money at this particular business, and that all takes time. So it was extremely scary. But to your point, it was some of the hardest things you do are the most rewarding, and you learn the most from. So very proud of, after the shock wore off and I picked a direction that I wanted to do, and I knew it was real estate, and I put my energy into that and worked at it probably twice as hard as I should have, and just channeled that. All of a sudden, I found myself gaining momentum quickly, and then I began to be kind of proud of what I've done, and kind of the whole thought process shifted and kind of said, way to go, Lance. Yeah, you're marching right through this. You're using that energy, and you're getting this thing kind of whipped. And so, I was very proud of myself, and I was very open to my kids. I said, hey, this transition is going to be a little tough, but we're going to make this happen. And so it goes back to the work ethic and the things that we talked about earlier. So anything's achievable if you put your energy behind it. Why do some people fail and maybe some don't? I refuse to fail. That's not an option. So if I'm gonna pick a direction and I'm gonna go, I'm gonna put everything behind it and make sure I don't fail. I'm not gonna approach it kind of half-hearted. I'm all in or all out.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting discussion, right? Like why do people fail? And sure, I think occasionally maybe there's circumstances that were out of your hands, but I'm a big advocate for trying to view life through the lens that our abundance is not impacted by external circumstances, right? Mm-hmm. And so, it's speaking to the resistance that you feel, right, and that you felt in that transition of, I'm sure there was a couple moments of what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I have found the best way to fight that resistance is to just do it anyways, and to just keep going,
Well,
and accept the resistance for what it
yeah.
is at face value. I'm like, okay, cool. If I'm feeling that, then that means I'm pointed in the right direction.
Right.
And that's what I've learned, because I don't feel the resistance, Lance, when I'm not going towards anything that's going to push me forward and potentially help and touch others.
Well, and I think the other thing too to keep in mind, and you and I have talked about this, and to me, it was an aha moment, right? So in my business, it's sales related, and sometimes that doesn't go your direction,
Right.
A client, somebody you thought would do business with you, goes a different direction, and there's a moment there where you can choose to get into a negative spiral and think about that and get negative about it and get mad about it and all of those things that pull you away from your goal, or you take that energy and you go a different direction with it, and you open 5 doors. You go after 5 new doors until you don't even think about whatever that negative moment was, and you completely channel your energy and take it a different direction. So if I could give, my kids or the world one tip, you're going to run into those moments where you offered somebody, you got a product or service you're offering, and they say no, and maybe it hurts, and maybe you're mad and frustrating. Instead of going that way, take that energy and go a different direction. Go open 5 doors, and don't go home until you get it out of your belly. Maybe you can go to the gym, go to barbell for an hour, and then go get on the phone and open the new doors and try and figure out what door to go through. But if I could offer that to anybody, that's your path to success.
1000%.
Take that negative and actually put that energy behind it and go.
I think there's so much to be learned from sales. And I don't really care what business you're in. There's a portion of it that is sales. Because sales, in my opinion, is being able to connect with another human being, find out what the pain points are, and sell them and build value in what you're offering. Like, I don't care what you do for a living, it's that.
Well, or maybe you work for a company and you're not in a sales position.
But I would argue you still are, because you have to do that. You have to connect with people, and you have to help them make sense of what it is you're doing and what you're offering. And I've learned so much in sales, in the different zones that I've been in it, in sales, right? Like, I mean, you get way more no's than you do yeses.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure,
like way more no's than
for
yeses.
Sure.
And it's just kind of becoming okay with that. And this conversation was reminding me when and we're going to get into it, because we're having a sidebar conversation before we put the cameras on, but we were talking about, when you're in business, knowing when to hire, how to hire, what you're hiring them for, and then that's a challenge. But this conversation about the sales piece and keep going against the adversity of no's and failures or things like that. When I was training my assistant to do some of the lead nurture that we get coming in from paid advertisements and things like that, I said, as soon as the lead comes in, I go, I want you to pick the phone up and call them. And she's like, just call them. And I go, yep. And I go, and if they don't answer, I want you to hang up and I want you to dial again immediately. And her face kind of goes white, and she's like, you just want me to call them twice? And they didn't. And I go, absolutely. And I said that statistically, a lot of times we'll pick up that second time, because maybe they don't recognize the number and they're like, oh, this is the same number twice. Maybe it must be important, right? And I told her, I was like, I shared a story when I had called a guy. It was like 11:30 at night, and he had come through on one of our paid advertisements, which means that he had seen the advertisement and he clicked on it at that moment. And I happened to see it come through, so I picked up the phone and I called him. Didn't answer. So I called again. Again, remember, it's almost midnight. And he was super confused when he answered. And it took me like 5 minutes for him to realize who I was and why I was calling. And it was because of this ad and everything else. And then I talked to the guy for like 40 minutes about where he was at, why he had interest in this program we were running, and ended up meeting with him the next week to talk about options. And so, but you have to get good at rejection. You have to get good at the no's, and to your point, like keep opening other doors.
Well, and using that, using that no, and to open that energy and go in a different direction. So because it ties into exactly what we're talking about, time after time after time. You have a negative moment, you let it spiral out of control in your mind. You take it home, let it spiral all night, probably sit and eat potato chips, maybe drink a beer, and maybe you're barking at your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever it might be, and you're taking that one bad moment and just absorbing the rest of your evening, possibly the next day, with just pure negativity. Well, I'm trying to offer maybe a shortcut to pull the plug on that, go a different direction, maybe get in the gym, adhere to your things that you believe in that we've talked about, God, family, freedom, and weights, maybe all those things. And that's going to push you in that direction a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you don't have to do damage control the next day,
Yeah.
and unwind all the bad things you said. So anyway.
Yeah, no, and some of it's just a perspective shift. Some of it's just choosing how you're going to respond to it, right? Which is probably where our greatest success comes in this life, is choosing how we respond to things and using our free agency appropriately that way. But
and maybe, just maybe, there's people out there watching, paying attention to how you handle that decisions, and maybe they're choosing to say, you know what, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm going to try that.
Well, and
it makes a change in their life,
and it might be return business for you down the line, because they might remember how Lance handled that rejection or that no. Hey, Lance, we're going to go with this other realtor or this other place, and how you handle it. They're like, man, that stood out to me. Like, I expected him to be pissed, and he handled it good. And, who knows? Maybe there's a return there on the exit interviews that I have with people that want to leave the gym. I always have an exit interview, because if there was something that I need to correct, I want to make sure that I'm aware of it, right? And I like to know the why. And I always, as much as possible, I always try to have like a good amicable split, where I'm like, hey, like, I wish you the best. And I tell most people the same thing, which is, look, bottom line, I don't really care where you do it. I do, because I'd love to have you here, but I just want you to strength train.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most important thing to me. And I'll have people come in to tour the gym. I had one last week, and I told the guy the same thing. I was like, look, man, if you want me to be completely honest with you, like, I can tell you what's different, what separates the Barbell Club from other gyms, but you need to find out what fits you.
Mm-hmm.
So I suggest maybe you do a day pass at each gym and like find out which one fits you. Because I'm like, I would love to have you here, but if it's for whatever reason it's not the fit, it's more important to me that you would strength train than you join a facility that doesn't fit you and then you not use it. Because I don't just want a list of members that I don't ever see. Like, I want people that come in and that find value in it, and that I can continue to add value to them. And maybe even give them some accountability, right? And some people don't want that and like that, and that's okay. So I've tried to have as many of my separations that have happened be on those terms, in the hopes that, if they ever change their mind and they want to come back, like, I'd love to have them. There's a few off percentages that don't end as well, and I try to control what I can control and do that, but I think it makes a difference.
Well, and if they were ever to get to the point where, maybe had a little bit more of your time, which you only have so much time to give, it's the aha moments or the good stuff was, I remember a couple of different times that I came into on our Thursday 1 hour session where I'd throw a bucket in the back of the pickup and my shoulder hurt. And I said, hey, Luke, it's my shoulders bother me. I said, good, let's go do some shoulder exercises. And I thought, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah.
He's going to torture me.
Yeah. Or
I think there was one moment where I had a back issue. Oh, good, let's go do some squats, you said to me. But the thing, and I thought, this can't be, you're not supposed to do it this way. And sure enough, you were right. We got into that area, that little bit of pain, and over time you kind of fixed it. And I thought, well, that was interesting.
Yeah.
And, through our methods and rubber bands and all the different things that it made it better. So I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, that's a good way to kind of keep this old body, this old carcass kind of in a good position.
And it takes time and it's just kind of building trust.
Yeah.
It's you trusting me and my methods and, what I have to offer from my physical therapy background and training people for 2 decades. But it takes time to build that trust. And so it's nice when we can try to find those little aha moments for people as soon as possible so they can see the value and we can continue building that. But it takes time and it takes consistency and it takes people showing up and doing all of that. But you've been ranked #1 realtor in this community several times, have you not?
Yes. Humbly speaking, yes.
Well, I'm asking the question, so the humility's there because I'm digging it out of you. Can you tell me how many times you've been ranked number one?
It's right at 10.
10 times. And how many years have you been in business as a realtor?
I think it's 11.
11 years. So 10 of the 11 years you've been ranked number one.
Yeah.
What are those rankings based off of, Lance?
Just sales.
Is it like money made or just the amount of properties sold?
It has nothing to do with money made.
Okay.
It's just dollar volume.
Okay.
Of whether you were on the buying side or the listing side.
Okay.
It sort of adds in under your name or your ID,
Yeah.
so to speak, and you get credit for that. So
being number one on a list is one thing, but let's put it in perspective. Do you approximately know how many realtors are in this community? Licensed that are?
Well, I think there's something like 250, if I'm not mistaken.
So
I haven't checked for a little bit.
Yeah. And I have to imagine out of those 250, maybe not all are super active, but okay. So let's roll back 50 to 75 of them. So number one, 10 out of 11 years out of close to 200 people. It's pretty amazing, man. And I appreciate the humility towards it, but I think that's pretty incredible and it deserves to be acknowledged and celebrated. But even more so, what are some of the top two things that you attribute that success to?
Oh, it's work ethic and I don't do it for money. I do it. Yeah, you do it for money because
Right.
You need to have the stuff
But that's
in order
second.
to pay your
That's
bills.
second.
And so
Yeah.
you want to help people, and I don't care whether it's the first time home buyer or a lot in town, or it's a big ranch, wherever it might be. I like to do it all, and I like to help people, and I like to have a successful outcome and try to make it a win-win for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I like people, genuinely like people.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I love that, and I had a feeling you might say something about that on the connection to other humans, right? And there's a great book out there called The Go Giver,
mm-hmm.
and it talks about that premise of our return in this life, not just monetarily, but being impacted by how many people we can contact and touch, right? And I've definitely taken that belief system and that model into the barbell club, and I've had a few times where people have pointed things out of like, where I'm losing money or where,
Yeah.
like I put my workouts on the board, right?
Yeah.
People are like, well, don't you write workouts and programs for people? I go, yeah. But, I mean, these are mine. And would they help 90% of people that are coming in the gym? Sure. Am I taking food out of my mouth by offering those? Maybe here and there, but I don't care. And I even post them on social media. Yeah. So whatever, I think we've got, I don't know, however many followers, 1,500, whatever, on the Barbell Club page. It's like they get free workouts every week because I post them on my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm okay with that because I want to give in. I want to add some value. And we just got done with this Build the Better You 8-week transformation challenge that we offered to the entire general public. Good turnout for it. And it was like a $97 entry point. And for what it cost me to build the program, for what it cost me to build all the back end stuff that communicates with each other, the cash prizes I'm going to give away, I didn't make any money, Lance. And I donated, and on top of all that time, I donated a full hour of my time each week to do a live call with everyone too. And the point was, like, I was hoping, at least want to break even, but like, it wasn't about like the return on that. It was like, let's extend our reach and let's see if we can help some people.
Absolutely.
Because I know that will give in. And I know that if people find and see that value, then yeah, it might bring me 3-4 memberships. It might bring me people that want to do online training with. It might do these other things. And I'm a big advocate for like giving things, because it always comes out in the wash. And I think it helps kind of push your brand forward. It helps make that connection. And the most important one is helping others. And so I like that angle of that's first, and then all the monetary reimbursement that we do, it comes second because of it. And so there's kind of an order of operation there that I think is super helpful. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that because I think people listen. I'm like, well, why should I listen to this guy talking with Luke about work-life balance? I'm like, well, the dude's been top of the list 10 out of 11 years, and that means something. So the conversation we were having right before we started rolling cameras of hiring, you and I were sharing some kind of parallels of like bringing people in and figuring out what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I found, Lance, that's helpful with it, because I'm sure there's people listening to this that need to hire someone, but they're unsure about it, or maybe they've just hired someone and trying to build that out. One of the things that's kind of been helpful to me is to figure out and itemize on my running to-do list, which is always huge. As the business owner, and I'm sure you've been there, you feel like, well, you need to take care of everything.
Right.
You need to be doing all
Right.
that. And the reality of it is that that's just not true. If the right, SOPs, standard operating procedures are in place, and you can educate and teach these people how to do it as if you would,
Mm-hmm.
you can be like, you know what? I don't really need to be doing that. I feel like I do, but is that really a needle mover? Probably not. So then you can start going through your list of to-dos using the 4 Ds, which I love, which is do, delay, delegate, and delete.
Yeah.
And that's a helpful way to go through this list. I'm like, okay, what are these things? And in this case, the delegation, what are the things that I don't actually need to be doing? And that's been helpful for me a little bit to look at this. I'm like, okay, what do I pass to my executive assistant? What are things that I still need to keep in control of maybe right now? I might pass it eventually. So how have you gone through that process?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I when I first started in real estate, I did it a little atypical, a little bit different. Most of the time you get a license, you learn the software, you go out and you begin trying to pull in clientele, and then certainly you got to put it in writing on contracts and so forth, and all that takes time to learn. And I basically transitioned it with my business partner, Rita. We chose a little bit of different path for me, where she supported me on the paperwork and some of the back stuff, the managerial stuff and the paperwork and the process and the contracts. I was able to stay out in front with people, where I knew that was my strength, and I knew that was my fast track to getting on top of this thing and creating some income. So and then certainly, but you got to know your product and the contracts and all the things you have to know for whatever business you're in. But sometimes you have to have the right people on the bus that allow you, and you play everybody to their strengths. And my strengths were with the public.
Yeah.
So to take me away from that, pulling me back into a different kind of role is maybe not the best outcome at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And you have to be mindful of that, and you have to protect that. And I would suggest that for any person, depending on what your strengths and weaknesses, and you sort of balance the office with things that I'm not. And things that I am, you're going to turn me loose, and things that I'm not, we're going to find somebody.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of been mindful of that over time, where my time is best spent, and I try to massage that on a regular basis to keep that right mix.
Yeah, and much like we talked about with work-life balance, it's probably a little bit of a moving target. At least it has been for me.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah, I like that idea of strength and weaknesses too, because that's one of the things that I've done. When I hired my assistant, one of the reasons why I wanted her was because I knew that there was going to be things that she was good at, because I had worked with her in another setting.
Yeah.
So I was familiar with her, and I knew that there was things that she was going to be good at that I just hated, and that sucked the soul out of my body.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, what's the point of doing your own thing if you can't have a little bit of control of what levers you're pulling versus which ones you're passing? And so
there's people out there that love those roles.
1,000%. And so that's been super helpful for me. And in fact, we were just talking about passing another thing to her, which is just because it's important to keep track of all the numbers and know your ins and your outs and all your statistics of, what am I spending on ads here versus what's my CAC right now, cost to acquire a customer versus revenue versus what's my conversion, what's my churn. Mm-hmm. I would rather be shot at. I want to look at those numbers.
You need a snapshot
and assess and make decisions off of it, but I don't want to gather it.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, I kind of love spreadsheets. And I was like, yep. And this is why you're here. So again, like passing those things of like strength and weaknesses, she has a strength here. So why would I not use that? But then I can challenge her with some things like the lead nurture that maybe isn't her strength, because I need her to understand that too. Because if I have someone that's in this role that's kind of my second in command and is me when I'm absent or if I'm out of town, I need her to also understand why I view things the way that I do. And I actually told her the other day, we were having a meeting, and I said, when I hired you, I said, I went back and forth a couple times on how much I should let you in on the behind the scenes stuff on this business. And I said, and I've chosen to be very vulnerable with you. Some would maybe argue more than I should have, but what I've realized is that if I'm going to really train her to fill the void on the times when I'm not there,
Yeah.
I need her to view things and also
Understand it all.
think the way that I do and see it through that angle. So it's been a really great learning curve for me on realizing what are the things that I absolutely need to keep a hold of and which ones do I need to let go of. And there for a while, I was like, I'm spending too much time training. I personally am spending too much time training clients. And I'm working in the business too much instead of on it, right?
Can't drop me though.
Can't drop you.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But this was long before I was working with you. And so I started pulling myself back. But now in the last year, I've realized I pulled myself back too much.
Yeah.
Because I also need to be out front. I also need to be seen.
Yeah.
Like I need to be seen as like I'm not trying to, I don't want this to sound vain, but like I need to be seen as the authority, as the expert, because I am. Like I know my shit, Lance, when it comes to training. And I need to make sure that I'm out there with my other portions of my team that I've hired that's doing training. I need to be on the front lines with them too. And so for me, I pulled back almost too much, and I had to because there was a season of it. Yeah. There was a season where I was working on getting things rolling behind the scenes, building out these other levers we were going to pull. But now that some of that's established, I'm like, okay, so the last 6 months, I've increased the amount of training I've done by a good bit, but still trying to keep the room in that dance of room to steer the ship, but also be out there and build those relationships and be on the front lines.
An example of that on my end was when 2019, 2021, when COVID hit. There was a point in time where I was going into the office. I told you at least at 2 a.m, like 3-4 days a week. I was working 7s. 3-4 days a week. I'd go in at 2, get my paperwork done, call people on the East Coast a little bit at 6, kind of finish up on the West Coast, and I'd be home somewhere between 8 and 10.
Yeah.
And I kept that up for a good 1.5, 2 years. My wife asked me one day, she says, "Are you going to be okay?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to do it because I'm in my 40s, and I told these people I'd help them, and I did. But I said, I'm not going to do it this way forever." To your point, I helped a tremendous amount of people during that time frame, so I'm proud of myself. I got it all pushed through. But some of them have now gone on and maybe bought or sold with somebody else. Why? Because I didn't have time to establish the relationship piece as much as I could have or should have because I was so limited on time just trying to help everybody get that transaction done.
So you were pushing maybe more volume than quality?
Well, you try to do both, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, it was, how do you eat an elephant, right?
Yeah.
One bite at a time. But there were people in that during that time frame that got to know me, trust me, enjoy me on a personal level. And then there was a bunch of people that didn't get that experience. And those people, many of them stayed with me, but some have left.
Yeah.
Because they found other relationships that are more meaningful to them in the real estate environment. So there's pluses and minuses. Go back to, what kind of mix are you going to do? And, they need Lucas. They need some sort of an attachment to you, but that doesn't mean you need to follow them around all day, all week.
Right.
But, that's the experience you're selling, and that's the product you're selling is.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it a lot, that show me a small business scenario where your personal brand is not the brand of the business, at least initially.
Absolutely.
Which is why I'm such an advocate for, I'm like, make sure you're doing the things to build that personal brand that help you be the best version. So as we talk about work-life balance, we'll wrap this up and go to the next subject. But when you look back now, 54, when you look back to when you started real estate to now, and you see some of those seasons where, you did those long hours to try to touch everybody and did those things. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah.
Do you see times where, I mean, obviously you've learned from it and it worked and it did what it needed to do. Do you see things that you would have done differently knowing what you know now as far as that balance that we're talking about of taking more time for you?
Absolutely. Way out of whack.
Okay.
Way out of whack. During the, arguably much of my 40s, I think I was way out of whack. Now, the kids weren't at home. I think I was a pretty good dad. You can ask them, call them and ask them. But, in my 20s and 30s, I tried to be present a lot and coach and be a part of their lives and make it to all their events. I think we did a pretty good job. I didn't have kids at home in my 40s, but that balance still, I could have spent more time with Lisa. Maybe I carve out more time with her during the week, or maybe more time for, something faith-based.
Yeah.
Or just generally, family get-togethers or things of that nature. It's not like that's all I did was work, but it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
And it was out of balance. And so then you get to this point in life where you think about what you've lost. Okay, maybe you've gained a little bit financially, but what have you lost?
Yeah.
It's not, you can't have everything.
No.
Well, you probably lost relationships. If I don't pay attention to you enough, or some of my friendships, they're going to go a different direction. If you don't pay attention to your kids, they're going to go a different direction. You don't pay attention to your wife, she's likely to go a different direction. So you can't get back the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, 1,000%.
So, when you're young, maybe you think about, you got just oodles and oodles of time. Gosh, I got the rest of my life. And you do. And then you get to my age and I can look back and I can say, ooh, a little bit more time, spend a little bit more time there, a little bit more focus over here on I can see maybe the balance that I wished I would have had now that I'm 54 and looking back on it. I don't really have any regrets, but I should have tweaked it a little bit. I should have tweaked it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was out of balance.
I mean, it's like looking at it, taking an inventory, learning from it. There's more value there than having regret and making a shame soup out of that, right? Like, but no, it's worth looking at, and it's worth looking. And the hope is, anything that we talk about on this podcast, the hope is that our listeners, they take these ideas and they're applying it to themselves, and they're like taking an inventory, right? They're listening to this right now. Hopefully they're thinking about their work-life balance, and they're thinking maybe they own a business, and they're thinking about, well, do I need to hire someone then? And what does that look like? What are the things that I don't really need to be doing that I still am? And what's my work-life balance? Because, one of the things that helps me keep perspective, because I have big financial goals, big ones. Love to create some generational wealth, but not at the cost of losing people that I'm doing it for. And so again, I won't use them as an excuse. I'm still going to go all in on that. But there has you have to do the dance around those seasons, and you have to keep control of the things that keep you anchored and that are your why.
And the big driver behind it is, to me, is faith. I mean, what we're doing here is temporary. So that helps me keep most days completely in perspective.
For sure.
And then, how can you make these days most meaningful?
Yeah.
Then you go on to achieve those other bits and pieces. But that's probably the big driver in all of it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think each day having intention and purpose and having that being dedicated to something that's bigger than us. And yeah, perspective is always easier to keep when we think about our place in the universe and that relationship with a power greater than us. And sometimes it's basically just going, you know what? We come into this world with absolutely nothing, and you leave the exact same way. There's some really cool opportunities here, and so much abundance that's out there for the taking that you can use for some really cool things, to create a cool life, to create experiences, to create memories, to create freedom, to create options. But at the end of the day, none of it goes with you, and so both can be true, right? You can still have those goals, and you can chase that stuff, but it's not what matters most. And so I just think there's order of operation, like life's a big math equation. And I think if we keep things in the right order of operation, it makes a difference.
Chase it all.
Yeah.
Chase it all.
Absolutely.
But chase it all with equal enthusiasm, the money, the faith, the family, chase it all.
1,000%.
I mean, that's the system we have to work with, and get after it. But if you see yourself falling down in one of those categories, if it's all about just money, you might have missed it.
Yeah.
And maybe, if it's all about one other thing, you might have missed it.
1,000%.
So,
well, and I think, that list behind me on that flag, it's not a mistake in the order that it's in.
Mm-hmm.
So my relationship with my Creator, my Heavenly Father, is all those things below it are because of him and because of the stewardships that he's allowed me.
Mm-hmm.
I say, that's like, I look at my wife and kids, I'm like, that's my family, but they're not mine. They're his. It's a stewardship, right? The freedom means a lot of things for me, but the freedom to choose, the freedom to live the life that I want, the freedom to chase whatever goals and aspirations I have for this short little probational period we're in, that's allowed because of him. My fitness, like, man, I have so much gratitude for him putting the weight room in my life when he did, because it was a very useful tool for me through going through some tough things in my youth. And I've ended up dedicating my life to that craft. And I just Lance, I got a pretty rad job, my friend. Like, I get to help be a tour guide to help people realize better versions of themselves and get to watch all these other categories of health get turned up, the volume get turned up because they invested into them. And I just get to sit back and kind of watch it. And it's so cool. When all the before and after started coming through for this 8-week challenge that we just did, because this last weekend, the 8 weeks was up, so they were submitting their before and after photos. Holy shit, Lance. You should see some of the changes in 8 weeks. Like, I bet I cried 4 times, because not only are people losing inches and losing body fat and like gaining muscle, like the legit change in Lance in some of these people's faces, there's like a countenance change. Like there's a brightness in their eyes that wasn't there in the before photo. Like, man, like it is awesome. And I'm so grateful for that stewardship and that opportunity, because I see the value in it and the value that exists to help lead people to that. And man, it's like, I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah. And in your mind, your order of importance is exactly that. And I don't disagree with that order of importance at all. But for someone that's kind of struggling, you might reverse that and put the weights on top.
Yeah,
and
sometimes
to get the rest of those categories kickstarted,
because it shows up. Yeah,
because if something, if they start seeing a difference and it starts showing up, it's going to kick into those other categories until they can flip the chart the correct way.
Yeah, 1,000%. And yeah, and because that's the mission statement of the Barbell Club.
Mm-hmm.
Expose as many people as possible to strength training, because we know if they give it a chance, it's a tributary of positivity for the rest of their life. And that's what I'll see. People will come in originally for some weight loss goal or something, and 6 months in, they're taking a re-look at their faith and their relationship with their Redeemer or lack thereof. Because on secondary to investment into self, you start looking at these other things.
Absolutely.
Innately. And so that's why it's so cool. And I love to see that with people. And it's
as you put it, your inventory.
Yeah.
And I would argue if you're struggling in all those categories, you may want to get to the bottom, the weight side of it.
Yeah.
That might help you take a quicker inventory of all those pieces.
Yeah. Start taking control of self.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we're his greatest creations, I talked about this 2 episodes ago. I had an episode where it was just me, and I was talking about, the geometry of life, which I think I've shared that with you, which is the triangulation between loving ourself, loving God, and loving our neighbor, and how each one can't exist without the other. And loving yourself isn't like the gross kind of self-love, right? It's loving yourself enough to take extreme accountability for your life. It's loving yourself enough to look at the changes that you need to make so that you can show up to help others, so that you can love God by glorifying him, by becoming your best version. Because again, I believe that's my core. Out of all his creations, like the universe and all the omniscience of everything that he's created in this world, we are his greatest creations. And the best way for us to love and glorify him is to become that best version of you, build the better you, find out what you're made of, see what you can create. How many people can you then help and touch? And it's that triangulation that goes all directions and never stops. And I love the opportunity to help bring people to that and find that investment.
And the passion that you do it is quite extraordinary. Good for you, Lucas, for being that passionate and that focused on it. Because we've had a ton of conversations that kind of involve that particular subject matter every time, and it's wonderful to see it.
I'm grateful for it, Lance. And it's I had a lady that came in. I had a check-in meeting with her because she's in our 6-week program. It was her halfway check-in. She cried, I cried. It was, but she said she goes, I legitimately feel like God led me. She's not from here. She moved here recently, and she's like, I legitimately feel like God led me to this gym. She goes, and it was because of these things we're talking about, because it's introducing her to her again.
Yeah.
It's introducing her to like what she's capable of. And she's starting to get this fire lit and this excitement for who she is, who she wants to become, what she's capable of. And like, man, it's awesome. and that's what it's about. And I told her, and I said, I've had more conversations about Jesus Christ within the four walls of this gym in the last 6 years than I have in my entire life.
Yeah.
And it's just, they just happen innately, because again, it's that connection to the bottom of that list to the top of that list, to your point. And it's just really cool. So, all right, sir, on to this next subject, and maybe this is a perfect segue, but one of them was faith and family. And so I have a question for you, Lance, but I'm going to set up the question with an observation that I've had, okay? And this observation is just me kind of looking at the general population and kind of how people go through life. Doesn't mean it's right, it's just my observation. What I've noticed with people's faith or their relationship with God, whoever that is to them, right? I challenge people a lot. I'm like, figure out who God is to you or who he isn't, because secondary to that is who you are or will become. So it's worth taking an audit on that and actually deciding for you like who that is. And so having that personal wrestle with God, the scriptures talk about a lot, where so-and-so wrestled with God, like, and I think it's important that we do that. But my observation is that people do not. And I think a lot of times, like a lot of things in life, it just happens by default because of how we were raised, the things we were exposed to. Well, this is just the church I grew up in. And, we ride the coattails of our parents' testimony of who God is. Mm-hmm. And that's great for a minute, and that's necessary for a minute. And my children are doing that same thing, right? They're 7 and 4. But I'm having conversations with them to get them thinking, to get them intrigued with like, who is God to you? Who is your Heavenly Father to you? Because so often it's just by default. And we never really gave it any real true look or any use of our human agency to figure that out. Because we reference him as our Heavenly Father. So you have siblings, right? 4 of you, right? In the family?
Yes.
You all had the same father, but you all had a very individual relationship with said father, right?
True.
And so why would it be any different for us with our Heavenly Father? And so what I observe is that people aren't wrestling with God. Not trying to prove him wrong. That's not what I mean by the wrestle, but it's like getting to know him. Like, what's your personal relationship with him? Because it's going to be different than mine is with him. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different than yours is. And so my question for you off that observation, Lance, is, have you had your personal wrestle with God? And I guess the follow-up question is, do you have like a firm testimony of who God is to you?
Ooh, that is deep, Lucas. So my journey began, I was born Catholic, and so I went through catechism and all of that, and I was an altar boy when I was young, and then we got married, and Lisa wasn't Catholic because it was a little bit formal and so forth, and felt like she got a little bit more out of maybe other congregations or churches, and so I kind of went that way a little bit. And so to answer your question, my wife has been a whole lot more intentional about wanting to learn about the Bible and things of that nature, and that's sort of drawn my attention to it, maybe more so than usual, other than the 2 trips a year to Easter and Christmas, sure. Christmas Eve. Yeah. That's drawn my attention a little bit more towards it, and so maybe you could say that the last 2 or 3 years I'm way more interested in learning more. Yeah. And starting to learn what I don't know. Yeah. and to kind of create my relationship with God. Yeah. Definitely a believer, always believed, but wasn't curious enough. Yeah. Wasn't spending time with it. Wasn't talking about it maybe with my friends or just really, it wasn't a part of my daily, weekly diet. It was just something that some people do and some people don't. Yeah. You're kind of a victim of your folks, and my mom, she was she just said, hey, we're going to practice, we're going to go. But she didn't maybe demand it as much as maybe she could have when we were younger. My father just we just went out and farmed. We had to work. We had cattle to take care of and crops to take care of, and that really wasn't a big factor in our week at all. So in Lisa and I's life, it's more active, and actually the last few years it's probably even grown. So I'm not sure I'm nailing the question, but it's become more meaningful to me, and I'm more curious about it. Therefore, I've been a lot more active in that area the last 2 or 3 years. 3 years.
Yeah, and maybe from what it sounds like to me, it sounds like your personal wrestle with God is happening more right now maybe than it's ever been.
Yeah, and you start to see it, as you kind of crawl up in age, and that's a wonderful thing. It's a blessing to get older.
Yeah.
You start to kind of maybe recognize your own mortality, and you start to view things slightly different. And so part of that is you start thinking about what the next life looks like, or at least understanding what it looks like, and maybe helping others understand it younger. And so it's that constant, thought process, and it's finding a group that you're comfortable with, whether it's a congregation or individuals or Bible study or whatever that might be for whomever.
Yeah.
I'm more open to it.
Yeah.
Than before. It was, I don't have time for weights. That's Lucas's deal. I don't have time for this either.
Right.
I've got to work.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think about balance again a lot more.
Yeah.
And I'm interested. So
yeah. No, I think that's great. Yeah. And I just hope, to challenge people to do that. And it doesn't mean you have to be part of a church. It doesn't mean you have to be organized religion. but I encourage people, I'm like, man, put the energy into that and figure out who God is or who he isn't to you. Because I'm like, I think it's important to not just arbitrarily believe something. I think it's important to know why. Yeah. Like understand the why. Absolutely. and who you are secondary to that. I even argue the same thing for if you're an atheist, you better be able to tell me why. Because your choice of saying, hey, there's no God, that's going to impact how you go through this life. So you better understand the why, And I love talking to people about what they believe, and it's never of any judgment or I'm right, you're wrong. I love to hear it because it's interesting to me. And anyone that has some sort of belief in a higher power, when you really boil it down and get to the brass tacks, it's all really similar. And to me, it's all that's proof of God. So it's just a cool thing, and I just hope that more people would do it. Because I think it does, to your point, it helps you look at your own life. It helps you monitor the fact that time is a limited resource, and that this mortal journey is just a small little blip on the radar potentially. When you start zooming out and going, we came from somewhere, we're here for a reason, and we're going somewhere. I think it's worth doing, because I think it can give you more intention, which I'm a big fan of, more intention on how you go through your day-to-day. And how you maybe connect with others, and how you connect with yourself. So I appreciate you going down that rabbit hole. It's an intense one sometimes, but so it sounds like right now you're at a spot where you're looking at this with more interest and getting a better understanding than maybe you feel like you've ever had before.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
But I'm a long ways from there.
I think I don't know that you ever arrive, Lance. I think it's a constant. It's the same with fitness. I love the gym because it's a metaphor for life and everything else, but you're never done. Yeah. Right? You're never done. And I use this example. I don't even remember who the comedian was, but he was like, I've been going to the gym and I see all these fit people, and he's like, why are you here? You're done. Right. Right. But it doesn't work that way. So you'll never get to a spot in your fitness where you're like, okay, I'm just maintenance now. Maintenance is bullshit, because that means everything about your physique, aesthetically, functionally, everything, performance, is exactly where you want it to be. And that's just not a thing. Right. So that's the beauty of the journey being the destination, is there's always something to work on. And so enjoying that process, enjoying the journey, because there isn't an end game. It's just constantly pursuing a little bit of progress and a little bit of shift here and there. And I think our relationship with a power higher than us is that same thing. Mm-hmm. I don't think you get to a spot where you're like, all right, got it all figured out. I'm good. If you guys got questions, just let me know. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. And I don't think it works that way. I think it's a constant state of trying to seek progress and greater understanding,
Well,
much of which we won't ever get until we're done with this life, probably, right?
Well, and the more the older I get, the more years I'm married to Lisa, the smarter I think she is.
Yeah.
So her holding me accountable.
Sure.
And putting pressure on me, get to the gym, her and my daughters,
Yeah.
you need to do this, you need to do
Yeah.
this, and some faith-based things and some other things that go along with it, kind of that partnership that holds each other accountable. That's the way it's designed. That's a great thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with faith and family, let's go into the family piece a little bit. I have 2 questions for you. And the first one, Lance, is what's one of the greatest lessons your parents taught you? And now you had mentioned work ethic, right? And like showing up, doing what you need to do, no matter what you did the night before, doing the things that you say you're going to do. So that's probably a piece of them. But is there anything else that when you look at your life and how you were raised, what's one of the greatest lessons that your parents taught you?
Probably just right from wrong, and a handshake means something. And so those were things that I still try and use today.
Love that.
Right and wrong, handshake means something.
Yep.
You don't need to have it in writing or contract that thick.
Yeah.
We can go ahead and look each other in the eye and shake.
I like that one, man. I'm a big fan of doing the things we say we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I try really hard. We all miss the mark on things we try for, but
Absolutely.
But man, I try to, even on the trivial things, right? If I tell you I'm going to do something, I really try to do it. And I hate it when something slips away or it falls off my radar and I missed it, because I try to live by that too. Like a handshake means something, because it's out of it's less about, I guess, what you would think about me. I mean, it's part of my brand book, hopefully too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that Luke does the things he says he's going to do when he says he's going to do them. But like, it's out of respect for you, out of respect for your time, out of respect for those things, So yeah, I'm a big advocate for that. And it's something that's gone away a little bit in this world, I think. But yeah, I like that one. So then with that, what's one of the greatest lessons you hope to have taught and are still teaching your children? Because you guys are empty nesters.
Yeah.
But I talk to my empty nesters a lot when I work with them in the fitness realm. I go, you're still setting the model to follow. Right? So you're showing, like, what does life look like at 54? Because they don't know. They've never been there.
Yeah.
So you're still the teacher,
Absolutely.
even if they're out of the house and they're
Absolutely.
adults. And so what's one of the greatest lessons you hope to have taught or are still teaching your children?
I think long and short is probably exactly what we said. It's the work ethic. Do what you say. Keep trying. Life's not easy. Stay focused. Don't let the negative drag you down. Stay positive. There's lots of things to think about that are very positive every single day. Handle the negative. Handle it quickly. Then drift and go positive. So those are the things that I would probably, I counsel the kids on a constant basis.
Yeah.
Because anybody can talk about their day, and it's usually the first thing you go into is how miserable it is and all the things that went wrong, and you're just dumping on each other. But if you temper that and go a different direction with your thoughts and feelings, life is, you can get your head above the water and you can breathe, and then you go home and everything's just that much better. So
yeah,
I would all of those things are very important that I try and talk consistently about, and don't give up. You're not going to get it all your way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep
going.
Having the discipline
Keep
through
going.
that adversity.
You
right?
bet, and you'll nail it. Yep.
Yeah, and I think maybe you're setting a model to follow when you have those little mentorship calls. You're rewriting the book of, we don't open the call with complaining,
Right.
And did you know Jim Landers, who passed recently?
Oh, loved him. Loved him.
Yeah.
Good friend. Yes.
I love Jim, and I had an opportunity to work with him in the fitness realm quite a bit. And Jim used to ask his grandkids a question when he would see them. He would say, what have you done, or what did you do that was kind today? And man, I loved that. That's so cool.
Yeah, he could come up with some zingers like that. He was wonderful.
He was great, yeah. And so yeah, I think maybe you're teaching them the importance of, like, the lens you view life through. You've got an opportunity with hindsight to look at work-life balance, and you've got an opportunity to mentorship them and lead them into that as they start families and stuff like that.
And the other thing too is see beyond yourself. I mean, it's easy to recognize what you're thinking about your carcass. Yeah. My carcass needs food. My carcass is stressed. My carcass is And it's very difficult to think about others or spend time thinking about others because, I haven't asked you how your day went. I don't know what's going on in your life. I'm sure there's a handful of things that are negative that you're kind of dealing with and so on and so forth down the line. I says, or we can just sit and think about ourselves. It's just everything is inward, and you're miserable. I said, go beyond yourself, help others, think about others, ask them how they're doing.
Yeah.
It's not all about you.
Yeah.
We're on this planet with several billion people, and we got to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think serving others and serving our neighbors is that's a form of service, right? Being engaged in their life and asking those questions. Perfect. So we always try to keep these at a digestible length. So I want to kind of head into our last little bit to wrap this up. I don't know that we'll get to all of my bullet points, but let's segue then, and we've touched on a little bit today already, but the perspective shifts as you age. That was one of the things that you had mentioned, and that's something that's on my radar, Lance, that just as we work in the name of progress, kind of progress over everything, and what we do in our craft, with our family, with our relationships, with our fitness, this constant pursuit of progress. What are some of the perspective shifts as you age that are kind of maybe, and we've touched on maybe a few of them already, but what's on your mind when you think about that is, aging is a privilege, and I agree with you on that.
It's a blessing, yeah.
It is a blessing, and I think people are quick to complain about it, and because comparison, is a thief of joy, right?
Yeah.
Disappointment comes from an unfair comparison. It's easy to get caught in that trap of, well, how I feel now isn't exactly what I felt before, but then there's the conversation, well, what are you doing or not doing? There's all these things, but perspective shifts, I think, are normal as we age, and it's because we've learned. Hopefully we're learning, and we're taking that inventory. We're looking back on it. So what are some shifts as you've aged that have come across the table for you?
The human body is remarkable. I mean, it really wants to hang in there and do what you want it to do for as long as you can do it. And it's amazing. I'm getting to a point here. So
listen, I'm here. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Hang with me, because I told you here about a month and a half ago. My wife doesn't even know it yet, but I quit chewing, right?
Yeah.
And so I look back on that, and I'm thinking to myself, first of all, I started when I was probably in high school sometime, and I had to force myself to enjoy something like that. And then I've dealt with it or used it most of my life. And I thought to myself, what in the world am I doing? Get rid of the damn stuff. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. Provides no value to my life. In fact, it's taken away from a lot of major goals I might have. So you think about how your body's trying to help you. It's trying to take all the abuse that you give it and try to be normal each day. And we just push the boundaries of how it feels. And you got to, instead of one cup of coffee, you got to have 6. So you really feel that difference. And maybe it's other kinds of substance abuse, or maybe it's alcohol, or whatever it is for you. It doesn't matter. But, I can just see all those changes that I've allowed to creep into my life that were negative, that I never really dealt with or wanted to deal with. And now I'm kind of taking them on. I wished I'd have taken them on a few years ago. But, you talk about, again, taking inventory of yourself a little bit. I'm not going to change. I got some bad habits. I'm not perfect, and there's a couple. I like to drink a beer now and then. Not going to change that. But at the same time, all things in moderation. And when I take inventory, that was one thing that needed to go. Ridiculous. Well, I could have held on to that habit for a very long time and see if it affected me or didn't affect me. And maybe I was going to be one of the lucky ones to make it to age 80 without some sort of major illness. Or I can say, what the heck am I doing? Why? So I would challenge those that maybe have something in their life that they'd like to get rid of or cancel out to, maybe it is this weight thing. I mean, it makes you think about yourself and makes your body feel pretty good. So when you walk out there, you're kind of craving it, making it feel a little bit better and a little bit better. And maybe that's the addiction you need.
Yeah.
As opposed to allowing these other pieces to creep into your life that you got to throw out, and it makes you lazy, and it might make you less productive than you could or would have been. So
yeah, no, I love that. And you and I have talked about this a lot, and I talk about this a lot in lots of different settings, but that taking the inventory, and it's like, does this serve me or does it not?
Well, the other thing too, Lucas, is when you hit, if you're fortunate enough and you get into your sometimes 50s, maybe it's 60s, certainly 70s, I mean, you're going to have some issues, some physical issues. Maybe it's skeletal, maybe it's internal, and you just don't know when that moment's going to happen. So you try and prepare as many years in advance to kind of stay on the correct side of the line if you can, and get as many years as you can out of your old carcass.
Well, I think it's worthwhile because, for some of the things that people maybe are looking at, maybe they're relatively benign. Maybe there's not a big risk on the other end of it, but it's also if like, I have another friend that recently just quit chewing. Well, he would use nicotine pouches, right? But it was a similar conversation. It's like he was looking at this and he's like, this is the first and the last thing that I think about every day.
Ridiculous.
And he was like, why? And so he did the same thing. Like he was like, nah, I'm done with that. Yeah. So I commend you and congratulate you on that, and of no place of judgment. If you wanted to keep doing it, that's your deal. But I know it's not easy, but you had enough willpower, you had enough intention to look at self, to look in the mirror and be like, this isn't serving me, and I'm going to go ahead and make that change. And you were probably you were a grumpy asshole probably for a week. Maybe some people didn't know, but internally you had that struggle, but you did it. And like now you've stacked up one more little win, one more little piece of evidence that you're exactly who you say you are, and that you're anxiously engaged on making the changes and writing the new book, even at 54. That's what I love most, Lance, about the fact that you quit chewing at 54, because of how easy the trap is of like, man, I've done this my whole life. I'm like, it ain't that bad. It's not really affecting my life that much, like whatever. Old dog, new tricks thing. But at 54, you said, this doesn't serve me, and I'm going to remove that. That's the state of progress that, if God willing, I get to have a life of longevity and get the privilege of aging. I don't ever want to stop that inventory. I don't ever want to stop looking in the mirror and playing chess with the things that are in my life and take control of those things. And I've had people argue this when I've had this conversation about, the booze or whatever it is. And they're like, well, you're addicted to your fitness and the way that you eat. And like, that's what you're thinking about at the first and the end of your day. And I go, yeah, but that serves me. Like that's not that's not robbing my family of me potentially. That's not, that
you're addicted to being too nice and too focused on your family. I'm not sure I understand the logic, but yeah.
It's like, your trade. And to your point, the fitness thing can become kind of a new replacement. Call it an addiction, call it whatever you want. But I remember, I'll never forget the conversation. I was in high school and I was maybe like my junior year. And at that point, I'd been lifting since I was like 13 and I'd made a lot of good progress. And I was at the gym all the time, Lance. And some of it was because I loved it, but a lot of it was, there was, some portions of my existence at that time where if I didn't have to be at home, that was a good thing for me. So the gym was like my sanctuary, man. And I remember I was in line. We were in the hallway. We were in line for something. And there was a girl ahead of me that was in my class. And she says to me, she goes, "You're addicted." And at first it kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, I'm addicted. Like, no, I'm like, at first it was like, no, I'm not addicted. And I was like, no, I think I am actually. And then my immediate answer after, like, it was, I processed that in about, 3 seconds. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I am. And I could be addicted to a hell of a lot worse stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, for me, it was an outlet. It was something that, I think even early in my life, because of some of the stuff I was going through, maybe for a minute, it was a little bit of compensation because I wanted to be big and strong. I wanted to be able to stand up for myself in certain situations. And it was a useful compensation in the moment. And now you've fast forward to now, it's not a compensation like that for me at all. It's completely found a healthy space for me. And do I still love it? Is it still a regular, integrated, non-negotiable? Am I addicted, quote unquote? Sure, maybe. But it's because I'm addicted to how it makes me feel. I'm addicted to the progress that it gives me. I'm addicted to the fact that it challenges me. and that it makes me do stuff that I don't want to do. Because even as committed as I am to it, there's days where I ain't feeling it. But every time I do it anyways, and I fight that resistance, I stack up another little chip on that side of the scale. I'm stacking up the evidence that no, I do the things I say I'm going to do, and I am investing into me so I can show up the way I want to, you know? So yeah, I think perspective shifts happen as we age, no matter if you're at 38 or if you're at 54. And I hope those shifts are happening for everybody, but I hope they're being acknowledged.
Yeah.
And I hope they're looking at that stuff. So Lance, what's the meaning to life, man? Why are we here?
I think we've touched on it all. It's an interesting process and a journey, no doubt. And you know, I've told you on several occasions, I think if we live this life several times, we'd probably screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your faith, your family, surrounding yourself with some good friends, and taking a little inventory of yourself and trying to make yourself better and others. I mean, that's the game, you know. And if we can put a few points on the board, make a little money, great, you know, to get from here to there. But that's the game we play. Yeah.
No, I agree with you on a lot of those points. The meaning of life has always been the question that we ask rhetorically because we'll think we'll never find the answer to what the true meaning is. But I think it's pretty simple, and I think you hit on some of them. If you ask me what's the meaning of life, it'd be a bullet list, but it'd be, we're here to get a mortal body. We're here to, you know, kind of be separated from God's presence so that we can grow and we can learn. We're here to face challenges and have trials and tribulations because that's how we grow. So we're here to grow. We're here to learn, and within that, He's also given us some wildly cool opportunities to experience what this short little probational period has to offer, including, you can build a business, you can make some money, you can make these experiences, but the relationships, investing into you so that you can invest into others. And I think maybe one of the top tier bullet points is, I think we're here to have joy.
Yeah.
I think we're here to experience love and joy and to be able to help give both of those things.
Well, and if you can add value to people's life is so much funner to get through. The joy piece.
Yeah.
You know, if you and everybody around you has that joy, and you can kind of it's so much better to get through.
Yeah.
Than to operate off the negative side, and everybody's going through their issues every day. And
yep, 1,000%. Yeah, we're in this together.
Absolutely.
We're all in this together, whether we know each other or not. And I like the idea of building a brand, doing things that make sense in that process. And again, I say it all the time, build the better you, but that's in an effort so that you can connect and help and show up for others and show up the way that you need to in order to do that. So to be the best version of self. So, well, Lance, I appreciate you taking the time to visit with me this morning. I think these topics are great, and I'm happy to kind of rummage through them, pick them apart with you, and appreciate you in my life and the friendship that we've built and the opportunity to train you once a week now for a little while. And congratulations on your life. Congratulations on the things that you've done. You've done a lot of cool stuff, and at 54, I think you've probably just scratched the surface. So I'm excited to see what the next 40 years looks like for Lance. Yeah.
I'll just keep my Thursdays, keep my Thursday sessions, Lucas. Maybe I can get there.
We'll keep it going. So Lance, thank you.
Thank you.